Hello everyone, and welcome to my YNR Official 24 channel. Nikki was in grave danger, trapped in the cold, dimly lit warehouse at the edge of town, her hands bound tightly with rough rope that chafed her skin, every muscle in her body screaming in protest as she struggled to free herself, her mind racing a million miles per hour as the shadows of the room seemed to twist and close in around her, and the air smelled faintly of oil and mildew, making her stomach churn with panic and fear, while outside, Matt paced back and forth like a predator circling its prey, his eyes gleaming with a dangerous mixture of greed and vengeance, muttering under his breath about the ransom, the money, and the power he could wield over Victor, who, unbeknownst to Nikki at that very moment, was already on his knees in his office, clutching the telephone like a lifeline, his knuckles white with tension, beads of sweat forming at his temples as he desperately tried to negotiate with Matt, his voice breaking with worry, his heart pounding as he realized the depth of the threat, how his beloved Nikki, the woman he loved more than anything, was at the mercy of a man he had underestimated for far too long, a man who had no qualms about putting Nikki in harm's way just to satisfy his own twisted sense of triumph, and Matt's plan was nothing short of cruel genius, exploiting Victor's weaknesses, threatening the one thing he held most dear, and Nikki, in her vulnerable state, was forced to confront the terrifying reality that she might not see Victor, or the light of day, again, as she silently begged herself to remain calm, to think, to find a way out, to survive this nightmare, every nerve in her body alert to the slightest sound, the slightest shift of movement, knowing that any wrong move could trigger Matt's wrath, and yet, despite her fear, Nikki's inner strength shone through, a flicker of determination igniting in her eyes, recalling every lesson life had taught her, every hardship, every heartbreak, every victory that had led her to become the resilient woman she was today, all while Matt paced, talking to himself, laughing darkly, imagining Victor's despair when he demanded the ransom, and knowing full well that Victor would pay any price, even if it meant sacrificing everything, and the tension was palpable, thick like the fog outside, as Victor tried desperately to reason with Matt, offering whatever money he could muster, promising deals, pleading, bargaining, and all the while, Nikki's mind raced, devising escape plans, thinking of ways to use her surroundings to her advantage, noting the broken crates, the rusted chains, the tools scattered haphazardly on the floor, each one a potential weapon or key to freedom, all while Matt's attention was divided, scheming his next move, envisioning the power he would wield once Victor complied, and Nikki, sensing a shift, saw an opportunity. A brief moment when Matt's focus wavered as he turned to answer his ringing phone, and her heart pounded with a renewed hope, a spark of courage, as she strained against the ropes, testing their limits, feeling the fibers fray slightly under the pressure, a small victory, but enough to fuel her determination, and as she struggled, the memories of Victor's unwavering support, his love, his protective nature, flooded her mind, giving her the strength to continue, to fight for survival, to not succumb to fear, and outside the warehouse, the storm raged, rain pelting the roof like a drumbeat, lightning illuminating the darkened sky, mirroring the chaos unfolding inside, while Victor, clinging to the phone, tried to stay composed, hiding the panic in his voice, negotiating with a man who had no conscience, a man who seemed to thrive on causing pain, and in that moment, the emotional weight of the situation was almost unbearable, the stakes impossibly high. As Nikki's mind raced with every possibility, every scenario, calculating, analyzing, preparing for whatever might come next, while Matt, oblivious to her subtle movements, continued to taunt Victor, laughing at his desperation, mocking his love for Nikki, trying to break him down, and Nikki, sensing the emotional turmoil in Victor's voice, felt a surge of urgency, realizing that she had to act, had to find a way to turn the tables, to regain control of her fate, and with a sudden burst of energy, she jerked her hands violently, causing the ropes to loosen further, the fibers finally giving way enough for her to slip free, and she crouched low, heart hammering, listening intently to Matt's footsteps, waiting for the perfect moment, every second stretching into eternity, every sound amplified, her breath coming in shallow gasps, and just as Matt turned around, she lunged, using a broken piece of wood as a makeshift weapon, striking with precision, a swift, desperate move fueled by adrenaline, and Matt stumbled back, shocked, his plans unraveling in a heartbeat, while outside, Victor, sensing the shift, felt a flicker of hope, praying silently that Nikki would emerge unscathed, and in the warehouse, a tense, chaotic struggle ensued, Nikki fighting for her life, for freedom, for love, while Matt, enraged, attempted to regain control, throwing punches, yelling threats, the sound echoing off the walls, each strike a reminder of the danger she faced, and yet, through sheer willpower and determination, Nikki managed to subdue him long enough to escape, her feet pounding against the concrete floor, heart racing, lungs burning, finally bursting through the door into the pouring rain, where Victor waited, arms outstretched, tears mingling with the rain as they embraced, the fear and terror of the ordeal giving way to relief, love, and an unbreakable bond. Matt lying defeated in the warehouse, his plan foiled, his threat neutralized, while Nikki and Victor, soaked to the bone, yet safe, looked at each other with a mix of exhaustion and gratitude, realizing once again the depth of their love, the resilience of their spirits, and the preciousness of every moment together, knowing that the shadow of danger would always loom, but that together they could face anything, survive any threat, and come out stronger, their hearts forever intertwined, their courage unshaken, and as the storm began to subside, the first rays of dawn breaking through the clouds, Nikki and Victor walked away from the warehouse, hand in hand, battered but unbroken, their bond solidified by the harrowing experience, knowing that no matter what the future held, no matter what schemes, betrayals, or threats arose, they would face it side by side, and the city of Genoa City, oblivious to the terror that had unfolded in the shadows, continued its hum of activity, unaware that amidst the chaos, love had triumphed, courage had prevailed, and Nikki, once again, had proven that even in the darkest moments, hope, resilience, and determination could light the way, and Victor, gazing at her with a mixture of relief and admiration, knew with every fiber of his being that Nikki was not just the woman he loved but the strongest person he had ever known, capable of facing the most insidious threats, overcoming fear, and emerging victorious, and as they disappeared into the dawn, leaving the night and the danger behind, the story of that fateful night, the harrowing ordeal, and the triumph of love over fear would forever linger in their hearts, a testament to their unwavering bond, a saga of suspense, passion, and resilience that would be remembered in Genoa City for years to come, reminding everyone that no matter the peril, no matter the villain, no matter the darkness that encroached upon their lives, the human spirit, driven by love, courage, and hope, could withstand any storm, survive any trial, and ultimately prevail, leaving a legacy of strength, devotion, and indomitable will that no force, however malicious or cunning, could ever extinguish. And in the quiet aftermath, as Nikki and Victor finally reached safety, their hearts slowly calming from the adrenaline-fueled terror, they allowed themselves a moment to reflect, to acknowledge the fear, the danger, and the terror they had faced, yet also to celebrate the triumph, the courage, and the unbreakable connection that had carried them through. And as they held each other close, feeling the warmth and reassurance of shared survival, they knew that the ordeal had forever changed them, deepened their love, and fortified their resolve to face whatever challenges the future might hold, because they had seen the darkness, confronted it, and emerged victorious, hand in hand, hearts intertwined, and spirits unbroken. Even as Nikki and Victor stumbled out into the first glimmers of dawn, their bodies soaked and trembling from the storm, their minds could hardly process the enormity of what had just occurred, the terror that had gripped them, the razor-edge tension of the hours inside that dark, menacing warehouse where every shadow seemed to conceal a threat. where every creak of the floorboards had made Nikki flinch and her heart race as she imagined Matt's hand snapping around her wrist, and even now, as the rain dripped from her hair and clothes, pooling at her feet, Nikki's thoughts were a whirlwind, cycling through fear, relief, fury, and a relentless surge of determination to not allow Matt to have the final word, to not give him the satisfaction of knowing he had terrorized her. She felt her pulse pounding like war drums in her ears as she thought of the countless ways she could turn the tables, how she could protect herself and Victor, how she could ensure that the monster who had tried to manipulate and control them would pay, while Victor, gripping her hand tightly, felt a complex mix of emotions: relief that Nikki was safe, fear that they were not truly out of danger, rage at Matt's audacity, guilt that he could not have prevented the ordeal, and a burning, visceral need to exact justice, a desire that clawed at his chest and demanded action, his mind already racing through potential plans, potential contacts, ways to track Matt, to anticipate his next move, knowing full well that a man like Matt, driven by ego, greed, and a thirst for power, would not give up easily, would not let this defeat stand without retaliation. And yet, as they moved further from the warehouse and the shadows that had held Nikki captive, there was a fleeting, almost imperceptible moment of calm, a chance to breathe, even if only for a heartbeat, before the storm of events that was Matt's revenge inevitably crashed down upon them once more, and Nikki, feeling the residual sting of the ropes around her wrists, the bruises forming on her arms, the ache in her muscles from her struggle, also felt a renewed sense of clarity, a sharpened awareness that she could not rely solely on Victor's strength, that she had to be proactive, that survival required cunning, resourcefulness, and the willingness to act even when fear threatened to paralyze her. And as they reached Victor's car, rain-slicked and gleaming under the emerging light, Nikki slid into the passenger seat, shivering, and Victor turned the key with a sense of urgency, the engine roaring to life like a beast awakened, ready to carry them from danger, but aware that the road ahead was far from safe, that Matt's reach extended beyond the warehouse, beyond the immediate threat, and that each passing second could bring new complications, new schemes, new horrors engineered by a man who thrived on chaos and control. And as they drove, the city of Genoa City slowly waking around them, Nikki's mind kept returning to the moment she had managed to free herself, the adrenaline-fueled burst that had allowed her to seize a piece of broken wood and strike at Matt, the pure instinct that had saved her life, and she realized that she had tapped into a side of herself she had not fully acknowledged before, a blend of courage, ingenuity, and raw survival instinct that would serve her well in the days to come. As she also considered the consequences of Matt's actions, the threat he posed not just to them, but potentially to others, and the urgent need to neutralize him permanently before he could orchestrate another attack, and Victor, sensing the storm of thoughts racing through Nikki's mind, squeezed her hand reassuringly, speaking softly, though his voice carried the weight of his concern. "Nikki, you are incredible. You saved yourself. You saved us." And she could see the mixture of awe, relief, and profound love in his eyes, emotions so raw and palpable that it made her own chest tighten with emotion. Yet even as they embraced that fleeting moment of safety, the reality of their situation pressed down on them like a leaden weight, the recognition that the fight was far from over, that Matt's obsession, his cunning, and his unpredictable nature meant that he could strike again at any moment, and Nikki, ever resourceful, began planning immediately, calculating, replaying each detail of the warehouse encounter, analyzing every weakness in Matt's approach, every opportunity that had presented itself, determining the precise ways they could leverage what they knew, what they had experienced, and the contacts they could call upon, the allies who could help them. And as she did, a resolve crystallized within her, a steel-like determination that she would not be a passive victim ever again, that she would confront the threat head-on, that Matt would regret ever underestimating her, while Victor, though equally resolute, wrestled with the duality of his emotions. The fury that Matt had dared to endanger Nikki, and the fear that lingering danger remained gnawing at him, urging him to act decisively yet carefully, knowing that impulsivity could worsen the situation. And as they reached Victor's mansion, the grandeur of the estate bathed in the pale morning light, Nikki felt a mixture of comfort and unease, the familiar walls a reminder of normalcy and safety, yet a nagging awareness that Matt could breach any barrier, could manipulate circumstances in ways they could not yet foresee. And inside, as they stepped through the doors, their clothes soaked and hair plastered to their faces, the staff immediately rallied around them, expressions of concern and alarm etched on every face. While Nikki and Victor recounted the harrowing ordeal, the staff listening in tense silence, horror etched on their features as the reality of Matt's malice became undeniable, and Nikki, still trembling, recounted each detail with precision, noting not only the danger she had faced, but also Matt's demeanor, his patterns, his strategies, every word he had spoken, every movement he had made, all of which would be critical in planning their next steps. And as she spoke, Victor absorbed every detail, his mind a whirlwind of strategies, potential responses, legal ramifications, and personal vengeance, knowing full well that Matt's actions were not just a threat to Nikki, but an affront that demanded retribution and resolution. And Nikki, sensing the intensity of Victor's thoughts, placed a calming hand on his arm, urging measured action even amidst the emotional tempest, reminding him that while anger was natural, precision and planning would be their greatest weapons against a man like Matt. And together, they began formulating a plan, one that would involve allies, careful tracking, and potentially a confrontation designed to ensure that Matt could not harm anyone again. And as the hours passed, the initial adrenaline surge gave way to exhaustion, bruises stinging, minds weary from the mental gymnastics required to anticipate Matt's next move. Yet Nikki and Victor both felt a quiet determination, a shared understanding that they were stronger together, that their bond, tested in fire and fear, had emerged unbroken. And as the day wore on, Nikki reached out to key contacts, allies who had proven trustworthy in past crises, including law enforcement, private security, and mutual friends, assembling a network that would help them monitor Matt's movements, prepare for contingencies, and ultimately bring him to justice, while Victor used his influence and resources to gather intelligence, track financial transactions, and predict potential hideouts, understanding that every minute they delayed could allow Matt to regroup, strike again, or escape. And Nikki, though exhausted, felt a surge of confidence, knowing that together they had survived the immediate threat and with careful planning could neutralize the long-term danger, reclaiming their sense of safety, their power and control over their lives. And in quiet moments between strategy sessions, they allowed themselves fleeting glances of reassurance and love, small gestures that reminded them of what they were fighting for, the life they cherished, and the unbreakable bond that had carried them through the nightmare. And while the storm outside had passed, the storm of human emotion, of fear, strategy, and determination raged on inside, each decision, each move, carrying weight, potential consequences, and the looming shadow of Matt's unpredictability. And Nikki, reflecting on the ordeal, realized that this chapter, though terrifying, had revealed strengths she had not fully acknowledged before: courage, cunning, resilience, and a willingness to confront danger head-on. And as they plotted, as they planned, as the hours melted into the late afternoon, a sense of grim anticipation settled over them. The knowledge that the confrontation with Matt was inevitable, that their actions in the next days would determine not just their safety, but the message sent to anyone who might threaten them in the future, that love, courage, and calculated action could overcome even the most dangerous schemes. And Nikki, glancing at Victor, saw mirrored in his eyes the same resolve, the same intensity, and she knew that whatever lay ahead, whatever schemes, tricks, or threats Matt might devise, they would face them together, their hearts aligned, their minds sharp, and their spirits unyielding. And as the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the mansion's grounds, Nikki and Victor prepared for the night, not with fear, but with strategy, anticipation, and a determination to turn the tables, to take control, and to ensure that Matt's reign of terror would end. once and for all, leaving them victorious, stronger, and even more deeply connected than before, proving that even in the face of the most insidious threats, love, courage, and unbreakable resolve could prevail, and the city of Genoa City, unaware of the quiet storm of plotting